I apologize, Councilmember Knowles. This has that provision in it.
Oh, it does?
Look at A262A5, last sentence. No one may address the council on agenda or non-agenda items at consecutive meetings except public hearings or appeals.
Okay, great. Thank you. It's my fault for not.
No, it's my fault for not preparing.
You get that sick.
Well, say that again.
Okay, that is.
Read that to me again. No person may what?
No one may address the council on agenda or non-agenda items. In other words, sign up in advance or sign up the day of on an agenda item at consecutive meetings. In other words, you speak this week, you take next week off.
So if there's an item on the agenda that affects the same group 2 weeks in a row, or the same individuals 2 weeks in a row, then that person can't speak to it.
If it's an agenda or non-agenda item that isn't a public hearing or appeal, yes. They get their, I guess theoretically, they get their opportunity at one of those meetings to address it, but not both.
Well, sometimes,
It says accept.
yeah, that can be a problem, and that's limiting people to say that they have to pick and choose which week they're gonna come down here and say, I don't like something.
Well, why couldn't you just add something in there that says, except, in other words, they would be barred from speaking twice unless the council approved, something like that.
But it said, it says accept public hearings or appeals. So that would seem to me that you can speak at a regular meeting and then a public hearing consecutive weeks, because a public hearing would be different than a regular
Right,
agenda
you just
item.
couldn't, if it was a public hearing, you could speak.
But then they could
twice.
also speak it the next week with a regular agenda item if it's the same thing.
Yeah, but if it was just, I think William's point is if it was just a regular agenda item that affected them, they would be barred from speaking twice
On the
about it.
same agenda item, not a public hearing or a.
Well, I mean, 1 week it may be one agenda item, the next week it may be a different agenda item.
Yeah,
So
different,
they're barred
different,
from speaking
Right.
two weeks in a row. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
different issues.
right.
Yeah.
You're limiting what people can do.
But as I said, the city of Birmingham has this rule. It seems to work okay.
Mr. Chairman.
I don't want to ever get.
Mr. Penn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I kind of mentioned it earlier when I saw this. I'm not willing to support anything that's not allowing people to come and talk. I feel that as a constituent, sometimes is every week you might have something you have to say about an issue. So personally,
I agree with that.
I'm not gonna support anything.
Take that sentence
Yeah,
out.
my suggestion is to strike that
Yeah,
last sentence of 5.
I agree.
Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Daves?
No, sir.
Anything else from committee members?
One question.
Mr. Carroll?
The individual named as Sergeant of Arms, who are we talking about?
It's any MPD personnel present.
The only thing that bothers me with that is that in any body of authority and board, a sergeant at arms is viewed as a elected person of that body or board. The police officer is an elected person of this body or board. So how can it be the sergeant of arms of the city council?
Well, the specific section is 263E. The chief of police and/or those members of the police department present shall be and act as sergeant at arms of the council meetings. They shall carry out all orders and instructions, et cetera.
Well, my question is that we're giving them an elected, in my mind now, and this may need to be checked in Robert's Rules of Orders, but a sergeant of arms is a member of the body that is enacting that day. It's one of our officers, in my mind. A sergeant of arms is an officer's position, is it not?
I'll check, but I believe it's a designee of the body.
The the Congress of the United States, the Alabama legislature, the sergeants at arms are not members of those bodies.
I don't know.
Part
I
of
don't know.
the state statute that names, it usually different, I think it's named the secretary was the police officer.
Yeah, in fact, it's the 1143-163 provision. I tracked the language precisely there. It said act as secretary and complainant for purposes of this section.
Yep.
So
I would-
I think I've used complainant elsewhere. I think just we wanted to track the statutory language for that provision in particular.
So I think that provision exists in state statute.
To name a sergeant of arms,
Well, we do that by ordinance. It's the chief of police or basically his designees, which would be any police department officers present.
Does that need to be spelled out in here?
I would think so.
But it is
What's
consistent
spelled out?
with the state statute.
I hear you. It's a policy thing because right now it's unclear that that's not an elected position. We're all in all types of organizations that elect boards and the boards govern. And we all know that that is a position that's elected by that individual group and comes out of that group. So if we're going to have a sergeant at arms at the door, then it needs to be clearly defined as how we're able to have that when it's not a member of the council.
It could say something to the effect of the presiding officer shall designate a sergeant at arms. No.
Can we just do it in this?
Yeah.
So Mr. Linder is correct. It can spell out the designation.
Yeah.
But remember, this is an ordinance and you have to still comply with state law as well. So,
That's why I'm saying it needs to be spelled out in this ordinance. So
we.
we have no issues.
Yeah, so you can always say that it's the police chief or their designee, because that's what we have. We have people rotating, but you don't get to appoint that person.
Oh, I don't know. We're not electing the person. It needs to be clearly defined for anybody that's reading it to understand how that person gets there.
Well, I can change the language to chief of police and or his or her designee.
Where are you?
That is 263E. But I could change that to chief of police or his or her designee present shall be an active sergeant at arms. So.
That would be better.
That works.
Anything additionally for this committee to discuss with regard to this ordinance?
No, as long as,
Anything?
as long as we're addressing behavior and not limiting what people can say, I'm fine. I mean, people need to be heard.
Anything from the administration on this particular ordinance?
No, sir.
All right. Anything else from committee members? Okay, Rules Committee is adjourned. Thank you all.
And I will circulate a draft by tomorrow incorporating those changes.
And we have not put this on the agenda.
It is on
It is on the agenda.
So I guess
Have to amend